No more clowning around. Art the Clown from Terrifier is dying to hear from you and is ready to take your call. Call 772-TERRIFY now, if you dare. Again, that's 772-837-7439. Operators aren't standing by because they're dead. What the?
Hey everyone, I'm Joe.
And I'm Jen.
We're co-hosts of Murder Made Fiction, a podcast that looks at fictionalized adaptations of true crime.
That's Murder Made Fiction wherever you get your podcasts.
And until then, let's leave the murder on the screen.
There are places where the world's most gruesome crimes have led to years, decades, and sometimes even centuries of supernatural activity. The victims seemingly reaching out from beyond the grave for justice. Those locations are In Creepy Places, a true crime podcast, and I am your host, John Grills. Join me in these creepy places if you dare, as we dive deep into the epicenter of true terror.
Slashers, huh? What's your favorite scary movie?
Not that one.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking nature versus nurture. We're talking Greek mythology. And we're talking hungries, not zombies. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace. And we're talking... Was that cathartic? Yes, it was.
Yeah. The slap, the punch heard around the world. I love it.
Real good. Everyone, we are discussing Colm McCarthy's adaptation of the novel, The Girl with All the Gifts. Honestly, I'm going to say this. It's a zombie film that, I mean, look, we all know that zombies are not my favorite subgenre. And I don't think they're yours either, right, Joe?
No, not particularly.
This is one that has stuck out to me. I think this is possibly the best zombie film we got out of the 2010s, but I'm saying that without looking at a whole list of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if I'd entirely agree with that, because there is a Quebecois one called Ravenous, which is really interesting and good. There's a bunch of good stuff, but yeah, this feels like it is different from the conventional stuff. And folks, I'm just going to say it, we're going to talk about The Walking Dead here, and I feel like this does a good job of distinguishing itself from something like that.
Yeah. I mean, look, watching this, I'm kind of like, well, I feel like I'm watching 28 Days Later sometimes because the way it's shot very much is reminiscent of that film.
And UK based.
Yeah, 100%. But before we get too much further into the film itself, let's go ahead and introduce our guest, everyone. She is a Toronto-based film critic, film writer and programmer and development coordinator for the Blood in the Snow Film Festival. You can also find her writing on her website View from the Dark and Hollywood Suite, as well as such publications as Rue Morgue and Grimm Magazine. You may also remember her from our episodes on Bones and Bad Hair. Please welcome back Carolyn Mauricette.
Hey. Hello.
Hello, and welcome to The Girl with All the Gifts. Hopefully I get that right as the podcast goes on.
As long as it's not The Girl with All the Gifts, as in like, she's got memes, she's on the internet.
There's something about films with long titles.
Yeah.
I just call it The Girl. The Girl, yep. The Gifts.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, welcome back to the show, Carolyn. It's been a little while, so I don't know. Did you discover this film like when it got released, or is this your first time watching this?
Oh, yeah, I think I discovered it when it got released. I can't remember if I saw it in theaters. I feel like I did. And as soon as it was available, I bought the DVD. Either I got the DVD as a gift, or I got the book. I'm pretty sure my boyfriend bought me the book. And so I just gobbled up everything about this film. So yeah, I'm very familiar with it and I love it.
And so you have read the book as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Joe, I know you're a book reader too. I unfortunately have not read this book, so you're going to have to help fill me in on some of the key differences.
Well, the good news for you, Trace, is that the Horror Queers Book Club read it last year, so I made detailed notes in anticipation that we would cover this one day. So, yes, I will bring it in. And then, Carolyn, if you spot any other things that you want to highlight, just let me know.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, because I actually have like little Post-it notes throughout my copy, and I did not make actual notes on the Post-it notes. So I'm like, what is this?
It's just a Post-it note hanging out.
I'm like, okay, so this is a point, but I don't know why. So yes, I will. Yes, that's great that you have notes, Joe, because I kind of have notes.
Out of curiosity, have y'all also read the prequel to the book?
No. There's a prequel?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a prequel, and then the end of the prequel also includes a flash forward that takes place, I want to say 20 years after the events of the book. So it catches back up with Melanie after the events of the book and the film. And I don't know. Apparently, it kind of changes the way that she looks at the world, which makes sense because she's older. But it sounds like they almost walk back some of the nihilism, which I don't appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, because honestly, I mean, this was my second time watching this film. I definitely saw it when it hit VOD. I don't know if this got a theatrical release in the States because I could not find box office information. If it did, I would imagine it was like very select like venues.
Yeah, I can't remember where I saw it either. So I would be curious to know if this ever really... Like, I think it may have played in very select theaters, or maybe, Carolyn, you and I saw it at like a genre film festival, or maybe the Carlton Cinema, or something like that.
It definitely did the festival circuit.
Okay.
Yeah, completely blanking on where I've seen it. So, yeah.
Well, but I will say, though, that I had definitely forgotten huge chunks of this movie. I noticed that on my rewatch last night. But the one thing I do remember from this film is that ending, because it is such... As you said, it's nihilistic, but it's a fucking fantastic ending.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Okay, well, let's jump right in. I don't have much of a production history because, honestly, this is one of those kind of cut and dry, like, easy-peasy productions. So this film is directed by Colm McCarthy, and this was his second feature film. He's done a lot of TV, including a lot of Peaky Blinders. He actually brought over cinematographer Simon Dennis and editor Matthew Cannings from his episodes of that show as well. His first film, though, was a 2010 Kate Dickie starring thriller horror film called Outcast, which I feel like, Joe, you and I should know because it's part of Bloody Disgusting Selects back when that was a thing.
Oh my God, really? Okay.
I know.
I've never heard of it.
Is that the werewolf movie?
I don't know.
I think I've seen that one. I think it's on Shudder, if I'm not mistaken.
Let's see. Oh no, it's about a killer pursuing his former lover, played by Kate Dickie, who comes from an ancient and magical Celtic race.
Oh
wait, but you know what? The poster has a claw on it, so maybe they're hiding the werewolfness of it.
Oops!
I'm
spoiler.
So It does say on Amazon, it says a beast stalks an estate where two lovers are breaking up.
Wow.
So,
yes, I've seen that one because I think is it Paddy Considine? He's in this as well, if I'm not mistaken.
He is in this as well. It's James Nesbitt who's the lead in that film.
Oh,
but he actually, funnily enough, he looks like Paddy Considine. So I guess this casting person has a type. But anyway, the screenplay, though, was written by M.R.Carey, who wrote it at the exact same time that he wrote the novel that the film was based on, which is also called The Girl with All the Gifts. I don't know. I find this interesting that a book author would be writing the screenplay adaptation in tandem. Like, I don't know. It feels a little like, why not? Well, I was gonna say, why not just do one of them? But I was like, well, money, I guess.
Well, it's also sometimes a way, you know how we talk about short films as proof of concepts and then you end up making the feature based on it? I think for some people it's like, well, if this doesn't get turned into a film, then I've got the book. And if the book takes off, then I can shop it around and get the film made again. I say that because that's what Clive Barker did with Hellraiser.
Oh, that is true. But that was a very specific scenario. Like, I feel like, well, go back and listen to our Hellraiser episode, everybody.
It's funny you say that now that I was looking through the book again, And there's a lot of different perspectives. So it's like
Yep.
Melanie's perspectives, the Sergeant Parks's, Miss Justineau's. So in a way, he's kind of developing or giving, actors their character on the page. So now that you say that, it makes sense.
Well, and that's kind of, I mean, outside of some racial changes in the characters that we'll discuss,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll discuss. That was the big difference that I could see between the books. That, yeah, we have 5 different POVs that we're switching between in the book, but in the film we were pretty much stuck in Melanie's POV.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because I don't classify the book as young adult, whereas the film is very much a young adult coming of age narrative.
Yes, but then that R rating hampers that, doesn't it?
No, Trace, you can have an R-rated young adult film.
I'm sorry. I know where you can have an R-rated young adult film. I just feel like, though, if it's I guess who's the target audience for this?
Oh, that doesn't matter. I mean...
Okay. Well, I saw some of the negative reviews that were like that brought up this exact same thing, and they were like, so I don't know who this is for, which, as we all know, that is my least favorite question that critics can posit in their reviews. But it's just one of those things where if you're dealing with YA subject matter, you would think that maybe you want to cater the material to a market who could go see it.
Potentially. It's usually, like, classification-wise, it's about the story that's being told. So because this is a young adult coming-of-age narrative, that means it's a YA. Now, whether that gets marketed to teens is another question, hence your R-rated goriness and that kind of thing. But also, it presupposes that adults don't consume young adult media all the fucking time. Case in point, Twilight.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Well, and also, this is a very adult narrative with a young person at the center of it. So I think it kind of covers both. Like as an adult, I gleaned so much from this film. There's so many themes, especially as you're saying, Trace, with the race switches. It's a whole other thing,
But I don't think that it makes it impossible for young people. Like I could imagine showing this to a teenager and them getting stuff out of it. It's just like, I don't even know that the gore is that bad.
It's not. Like, it's just a bit of blood smeared. And, like, Melanie's always covered in blood, but she's, like, this adorable kid, and she just wants to please everybody, but she's got blood all over her face, which is one of the best visuals I've ever seen. She's like, I'm a good girl. I want to help you guys, and then also eat people, so.
Yeah, that's the thing. I hate it when we have, like, YA material. It's like, well, yeah, like, not children, but teenagers should be able to watch this. I think, honestly, yeah, y'all are right. The gore isn't that extreme. It's mostly bullets to the head, to be honest, except for Gallagher's death, where we do see his remains, where he's been eaten down to the spine.
Ooh, boy, those kids were hungry.
But also, kids can handle it. Like, they can like, I took my niece when she was, like, I don't know, I'm going to say 12, 13, I don't know. We took her to see Escape Room, the first one, because I was excited that there was a young Black girl in the lead. Yeah. And so I wanted my niece to see that. I'm like, want you to see this. And then I said to her, I asked her, I'm like, what did you think of the Black girl? And she's like, it was awesome. Like she's, and like that kid was watching zombie movies way before she should have been. So they can take it. Yeah. So yeah, I can see the YA classification.
It's always a thing where it's like, I mean, at least in the States, it's a very quantitative judgment system with the MPAA, where it's like how many times they say fuck, how much red blood is in the movie, and blah blah blah. Where I'm like, maybe I feel like maybe it should be a bit more in depth of like, okay, like content wise, can a 13-year-old watch this? Is it would it fuck them up? I don't. And this isn't a movie I think that would fuck anyone up, but no, maybe not.
If anything, this movie is such a conversation starter to me. And I know that that's not what the MPA is interested in. As you said, it's a lot of checkboxes and they just want to make sure that they're hitting that Christian right, okay? But I think that's why Carolyn and I would probably say, oh, Canada's system is better because we have that 14A classification. I'm pretty sure Britain has something similar. So like, it's honestly a US thing.
No, it 100% is. Like, I really wish we had the 14 and the 18, but we don't.
No.
Anyway, okay, the budget for this film was £4 million, and half of that came from the BFI Film Fund and Creative England, making it the biggest investment that the latter had ever made, and one of the largest ever for the BFI. I don't have any box office numbers for this, for at least the domestic release. I do have a 4 million international gross, so there's that at least, but nevertheless, I mean, technically, this movie was a flop.
Right. It just strikes me as one of those things where whenever I talk about it with people, they've either never heard of it or they randomly picked it up from a video rental store and it's all just kind of been word of mouth.
Well, and I want to tell you right now, I mean, look, no shade to the title, but I don't think the title is very captivating or attention-grabbing.
It doesn't tell you what you're in for. I think it works better as a book title for sure. This is kind of classic YA again. But yeah, as a potential zombie movie, this is not helpful. Although, you know, then we have things like Pontypool, where, well, I guess Pontypool wasn't a huge hit either. Retraction.
It was a home video hit because I feel like that movie's become a cult hit. I mean, weirdly enough, the original title for the film was going to be She Who Brings the Gifts, and then they reverted it back to the actual title of the book. So whatever.
I don't know. I kind of dig the title. I don't know why, because I mean, when you think about, like, you know, when they go into Pandora's box, you can't just call it Pandora's box. Like,
right.
It's, I mean, yeah, I don't know. To me, I really like, and I didn't really know that it was a flop. I never paid attention because I love it so much. And I love the book so much, and I love the changes. So I never really paid attention to the box office, and I just, you know, really loved the film, so I thought everybody else would.
Well, and here's the thing, though. I don't think that there would have really been any news about it being a flop because it didn't get that theatrical domestic release. Had it gotten a release in theaters over here and it still made this much money, I feel like, yeah, there'd be more news about that. But yeah, I feel like because I think it went straight to VOD or streaming or whatever the fuck, but like, I feel like people didn't know about it.
Right.
Also, Trace, do you think because it's a British film, like in the US, it doesn't really gain a lot of traction? Do you think that's part of it too?
Well, that's the thing. So Warner Brothers acquired the British distribution rights while the film is being but Saban Films got it in the States.
Right. Oh,
and Saban isn't great at anything.
Okay, hey. Let's just put it on the record. Saban releases a ton of great genre titles.
Yeah.
The issue is that they're kind of like Neon, where whether or not they get it out to people is another question.
Yes. Thank you for... That's what I meant.
I was like, let's not go shitting on Saban.
No.
They've gotten better, actually, with the releases. Like, before, it used to be super, super B movies with them. And then...
It feels like they've gotten a better handle on picking up really good foreign titles, which is basically what this is.
Yeah, I think, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
But yeah, so we have principal photography began in May of 2015 in the West Midlands and lasted for 7 weeks. Although the aerial views of a deserted London were filmed with drones in the abandoned Ukrainian town of Pripyat, which has been uninhabited since the 1986 Chernobyl disaster.
Oh, that makes sense. Interesting. I thought that those were definitely CGI and not great.
Well, so here's the thing. I agree with you. I think that they did the drone shots and then CGI'd over them with like the foliage or, I don't know, the Mercedes-Benz logo.
Right.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. From what I remember doing my research on the film, first, I can't remember what I was doing. See, my brain. No worry. But yeah, I remember looking it up and I remember them saying that, yes, they did put in some digital effects as well over, you know, what they filmed. But yeah.
Yeah. But nevertheless, I mean, we have a really positive reception. It has an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average rating of 7.2 out of 10. Metacritic, it's got a 67 out of 100. And Letterboxd users have given it a 6.6 out of 10.
Oof, it's a bit low.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm on the 8 out of 10 for me, honestly.
Yeah, this is a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I really like this. Just to tell you, so like, you know, I drove 8 hours from Lubbock to Denver yesterday, and like within the hour had to hop on a recording with Joe and a guest. And then I had to watch this movie after that.
Oh, man.
And walking in, I was kind of like, oh, I gotta watch this movie for research, blah, blah, blah. And literally like 5 minutes in, I was like, boom.
Oh, right. It's a good movie. Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I find this movie also opens incredibly strongly. So it really sucks you in very quickly.
Yeah. So let's talk about that then, Joe.
Okay. I love that segue.
Yeah.
All right. So the film opens as a preteen girl who is Melanie, played by Sennia Nanua, is counting in the dark. And we don't know what she's doing. We don't know why she's doing it. And then we start to hear yelling and insults. And I actually asked Trace not to say the insult as part of his opener, because I honestly find it really upsetting what they call these kids in the movie.
Can we say what they call them? Is that okay?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so Patty Considine's character just calls them friggin' abortions. Throughout most of this film,
like a lot.
Yeah.
I think the reason I find it really frustrating is, I mean, it's very much in character. It makes sense for who Parks is, but as a person who wants to empathize with these kids, because these are like 13-year-old kids. I think the actors are 16. It's deeply upsetting that they don't even respond because they don't understand what they're being called.
I actually think, I'm sorry, not to go back to the rating thing, but I actually think that the fact that it's not just Melanie, but also the feral kids we get later in the film, I think that gives it its R rating more so than just your cat. I mean, there's a lot of language, obviously, but I think like with just the mere subject matter of this being about kids in this type of environment, it was never going to get something like a PG-13 rating.
Oh, right. We should probably also do a content warning that there is a cat and a pigeon who gets eaten in this movie.
Oh, yeah. And possibly a dog, but we don't see it happen.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10, just because, I mean, in this world, it's going to happen.
Oh, sure.
Like, it's going to happen. So it's believable. It's plausible, right? But still, it bothered me. I'm like, the baby kitties. Yeah. Oh, the puppy.
It's so funny. The way the cat death is shot, I think, is really good. Like, to where it's like, she's eating a cat, but like, you don't have to watch the cat really be in pain. For me, it was when she actually found the dog, and I was like, oh my God, this poor dog has been living alone in this, like, decrepit house, and like, is just trying to survive. That made me sad.
Yeah. That was upsetting, because I'm like, the puppy. And then I'm like, oh, he's bait.
Meanwhile, people getting horrifically murdered. And
yes, right.
Well, and that's the thing, because I was about to say, yeah, but a lot of them are kind of assholes. But it's like, at the end of the day, I understand why all these people are the way they are. So even though, like, yeah, I want to kind of hate the Patty Considine character for being, honestly, even the Glenn Close character for being the way they are, I also completely get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are the last bastion of humanity, potentially. So they are, I mean, we're supposed to relate to them, but also then you see how awful they are. And I think that just makes it so much easier to understand why Melanie does what she does.
Can I just go back to the pigeon thing? Sorry.
Yeah.
So I live in, I feel like sometimes it's Jurassic Park. Before there's a condo that went up, but before it was like a transit parking lot. And there used to be seagulls kind of cruising that area, and they would actually eat, like, I'm not kidding, they would eat pigeons.
Whoa.
And so they would hollow them out like, what do they call baked potato jackets? That's what they call them in Britain, I believe. So they would hollow out this pigeon, and then when Melanie was eating the pigeon, I'm like, I like the seagulls.
Oh my God.
So I just had to share that. So, yeah, Jurassic Park.
I love that you're living in some kind of weird carnivorous environment.
Yes. I mean, I don't know, about 3-4 years ago in the before times, there was a knee-high hawk standing there, and I'm like, I'm just going to the subway. I'm moving slowly. It's just standing in the middle of the road. It was horrifying. Anyway, that was just an aside.
Folks, I swear Toronto is not like a weird post-apocalyptic wasteland of carnivorous animals.
I mean,
honestly, it sounds like
it
based on what both of you say.
Yeah, the raccoons, the pigeons.
Oh my God. Oh, let's not. No, moving on.
Moving on.
Okay, yeah. So we hear yelling, we hear insults, and then Melanie gets up and she sits down in a wheelchair as Private Gallagher, who is played by Fazeo Akinad, as well as Private Devani, who is played by Dominic Tipper, come in and they strap her to this wheelchair by her arms as well as her head. So that's when we hear Sergeant Parks, who, as we mentioned, is played by Paddy Considine, and he's out there barking, yelling, screaming, and then we see that Melanie is one of, like, more than a dozen of the kids. They're all dressed in these identical orange jumpsuits, and then they are wheeled into a large windowless room, and we get the title card.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I'm a sucker for a good title card, and just the framing of this, where we have Melanie on screen left, and then the title card fills the space screen right. Ooh, chills.
Okay. We're then introduced to Dr. Selkirk, who is played by Anna Maria Marinka, and she enters the room very brusquely. She's all business, doesn't care about these kids, isn't interested in saying hello, and she's asking the kids to recite the periodic table from memory, and she's very aggressive about it. Like, you should know this, blah, blah, blah. Like, she's what I call a bad teacher.
Nah.
And then she's interrupted by Miss Justineau, who is played by Gemma Arterton, and she comes in, and all of a sudden it's smiles and special greetings. Melanie is very receptive to Miss Justineau, and Selkirk just leaves, saying, it doesn't really matter what the content is, it's immaterial. So we have no context for any of this.
I'm sorry. I just want to say, though, Gemma Arterton is one of those actresses who I like her in everything I see her in. But if you ask me to name a single movie that she was in, I don't think I could tell you. I sometimes call her like generic hot. She's obviously a very attractive woman. You're right, Trey. She's really good in most of the movies that she's in. Sometimes she's the best part of a really bad movie. Looking at you, Clash of the Titans. Oh, because I always remember her as Strawberry Fields in Quantum of Solace, but that's like the James Bond movie that everyone hates. Any Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunter fans out there?
Oh, actually, yeah, she's really good in that one too.
That's what I'm saying. No, she's in a vampire movie called Byzantium. Like, she was in that. Well, I didn't see it, but she was in The King's Man, that prequel to Kingsman. And
right.
Every time that trailer came up in the theater, my husband was like, "Who's that woman?" And I told him every fucking time, and I'd be like, "Yeah, she's in this and this and this," and he's like, "I don't know." So while I'm watching this last night, he walks out and he's like, Who's that woman? I think she reminds me of a British...
She reminds me of Kelly Riley, the woman who was on that Yellowstone show before it got canceled because Kevin Costner left, and she was also in Eden Lake.
Yeah. No, Eden Lake was the big one.
I can never place her. Like, the only movie I know was the vampire movie because, oh my God, who did that? Was that?
It's Neil Jordan.
Yes.
Oh, shit!
Yeah. And I actually thought it was a bit of a slog. I know it's done well.
Yeah. It's beautiful, but so fucking slow. And you're just like, oh, but it's got Gemma, it's got Saoirse
Ronan.
Oh my God.
The director of The Crying Game, Interview with the Vampire, doing another vampire movie.
Yeah. That was a movie that did nothing too.
But it did nothing. But anyway, I just feel like I had to point this out because I am guilty of constantly like forgetting that Gemma Arterton exists, even though, I think she's actually a really good actress.
Mm-hmm. She's really good in this one too.
Yeah, she's really
super
great. Mm-hmm.
So Carolyn, I'm going to kick it off to you because we mentioned the fact that there is a race swap in this movie. So in the book, Miss Justineau is the only person of color, and a lot of people had huge issues with it because of what happens to the character at the end and how it, there's a lot of sexualized commentary about the character, so it sometimes feels like the exoticization of a black woman. And then obviously we flip it, so we have the protagonist as a teen black girl in the film, and then Justineau is white. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, and I know, okay, so I can't remember the book 100%, but I do remember obviously that Miss Justineau was black in the book. I can't remember, I think wasn't there a sex scene? I think her and Kieran had a thing. Or was it Parks?
So everyone objectifies her, and then she
Right.
makes out and fucks Parks.
Oh,
That's
shit.
it. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, there, I mean, that is problematic. Obviously, it's problematic, but I think the switch for the film now, and I know they say that they saw Sennia and she was incredible and she was the last kid in the audition kind of origin story. So in the book, the first line of the book is, it says, her name is Melanie. It means the black girl from an ancient Greek word.
Right.
But
Yep.
yeah, and then it goes on to say, but her skin is actually very fair, so she thinks maybe it's not such a good name for her, right? So I don't know if they had that in mind when they were casting Melanie, but I think it's so layered with Sennia as Melanie, and there's so much to it. Like, she is a young black girl, has no idea why she's in this facility. She does know that she's different, but she slowly begins to realize her power and her position in this world. And I think it's a huge step. It actually makes the story 10 times better. That's what I think. Yeah.
Well, so I guess my question, the problematic nature, though, being that what happens to Justineau at the end, meaning she gets probably the darkest fate out of all the characters in this book, and that it's happening to a black woman. Is that the problematic aspect we're talking about?
Yeah, it's basically a white person enslaves a black person to do their work for them.
I didn't even think about the... I didn't even think about it as enslavement, but that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, okay, it's interesting then, because I don't know, would y'all, not to use like a layman's term, but like, would y'all call this like a good for her type movie?
100%.
But then would you also call the book that?
No.
Is it just because of the race switch then? Or is there more to it than that?
Well, there is more to it.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, Miss Justineau's fate is actually darker in the film than in the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we'll get there.
Okay.
Because also, Miss Justineau, if I'm not mistaken, she is attached to, I mean, in the book, she's attached to Melanie because she also carries a lot of guilt. Because didn't she ran a kid over?
Yeah, that's part of her backstory, which is not really addressed at all in the film. I think there's like a casual mention that she has like a darkness in her past, but the film doesn't elaborate on it.
Yeah. And also, like, I think also there's a thing that I actually, when I was making a few little notes for myself about this film, there's something that they've been talking about a lot in like the media, and it's called the adultification of black children. I got this from an article off of the CBC website, which is our Canadian, one of our broadcasters. And there's probably different variations, but adultification is a form of gendered racial prejudice, largely impacting black girls and children of color who are denied necessary protection society usually affords children. So basically, they're treated like adults. And I feel like this is happening with Melanie. Like, you know, every time the doctor talks, you know, about Melanie, she's not a child. She's a thing, you know? Like the soldiers, they're treating them as things. And the fact that she's a black girl, it just really kind of pulls on that. Like, yeah, it's just really striking and very impactful.
To kind of piggyback on that, I'm sorry, I'm going back to even Justineau here. So do you think that by also making this character white, the film kind of in a way subverts the white savior trope by punishing the white savior? Or does white savior not count if she's not savioring her because of the color of her skin?
Well, here's the thing. I was thinking this movie turns the sacrificial Negro, magical Negro on its head as well, that trope. Because... you know, Melanie's asked to give herself up to help the greater good. And she's like, hell no. What's in it for me, Holmes? You know, there's nothing in it for me. I found my people. She finds that tribe of kids.
Yeah.
You know, like there are kids like me living free. So why should I give my brain up to save the rest of you hacks? You know, you guys can't function in this society. And who's to say when they find that huge stock of spores about to like go off, like anything could basically set these spores off and then kill off the rest of the human race. So why should she kind of gamble her life for this kind of tentative saving, you know? Like, so she actually has this like agency, and she flips this on the head. And I just think that's so brilliant. And again, it's like the whole George Romero thing. Did he know or didn't he? Like, did they know? Yeah. Or did they just think it was coincidence? Because to me, it's a very powerful message that, you know, she's putting those in power at her mercy. Right. You know? Okay, so the Justineau Melanie relationship, it's very maternal. I feel like Melanie is almost obsessed with her in this film. She's obsessed.
Oh, we're going to read it as queer.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Okay. Yeah.
Well, because Melanie does look a little, I mean, is this wrong to say? She looks a little androgynous to me.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And like she's like devoted. They're devoted to each other, right? And so I think that Justineau's fate at the end of the film, she could have just sent her out. Well, here, you know, suck up some spores and see you later. Yeah. But she's kept her. She's like Melanie's pet almost. Yes. You know? And like she's under her power. So this is it's such a radical film when you think about it. It's hugely radical.
Yeah, I mean, we've been having this discussion for like 5, maybe 10 minutes, and I'm already like, shit, like there's so much depth to this movie.
Yeah.
Although I'm going to pull us back all the way to the beginning. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to open the door and say, like, let's talk about the end. I think it's so hard not to address the end of the film because it really does recontextualize a lot of what we've seen leading up to it.
100%.
One of the things I love about this opening is that we don't understand the context, right? So it just looks like these children are being abused or that they are some kind of scientific experiments by the military, and we instantly relate to them. Like, we empathize with them. We want to see them get freed. We see these adults treating them really badly, and we don't like it. So I think it's a really smart way to get us on Melanie's side.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
So Miss Justineau has now arrived, and the kids, knowing that she's a softie, they ask for her to read them a story. So she agrees as long as no one tells Dr. Caldwell. And that is very much the cue that, oh, if there's a person who's bad in this movie, it must be this Dr. Caldwell.
It's so funny because the relationship that I got between even Justineau and Caldwell, it felt very Miss Honey and Miss Trunchbull in Matilda. To make it an even younger audience.
Your point about Melanie looking androgynous, so does Dr. Caldwell. And
yes.
It's this really interesting, like, there's a subject and the scientist, and they both have similar looks. You know, it's just really interesting.
Well, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, because Glenn Close has kind of a masculine features in her face. And so there had to have been a conscious decision on either, I don't know if it was her part or the costume or hairdresser's part, but like, yeah, it's like there are times when I'm like, all right, that's a woman that I'm looking at in this movie.
Well, I think it's partially by design. Like, the book makes it more obvious that she works for the military, whereas the film, I think it's easy to confuse that she's a scientist and she's working collaboratively with the military.
Right.
But like, this is a pretty standard haircut. It's just that we notice it in stark contrast to someone like Miss Justineau, who does not have it. She has like a regular, you know, shoulder length head of hair. And as a result, we're like, oh, okay. So, you know, we could very easily read Dr. Caldwell as coded lesbian because she does look like one of those kind of like mature ladies who is like, fuck this hair. I'm doing away with it because I don't need it.
Mature ladies.
I mean, you could add me to that list. I cut my hair. I'm like, I had enough of you. You're not behaving. Cut me.
I'm sorry, that was incredibly ageist, and thank you for calling me out on it.
No, but it's true.
No, it actually is. It's like, it's a very stereotypical thing, and I should probably be more cognizant of it. But yeah, I mean, like, when you think of queer women, it's like, yeah, you could absolutely see Dr. Caldwell falling into that. It could also just be that she's consumed by her work. So she's like, this is like, we're living in the post-apocalyptic world. I don't need all of this hair. This way I just get to wash and go straight back to business of cutting into children's heads.
Yeah.
I wonder if she got that role too, because you remember that film she did, Albert Nobbs?
Okay, Carolyn, literally.
Were you going to say that as well?
Yes. Well, no, because so my husband walks out, he's like, oh, it's Albert Nobbs. And I was like, I'm wondering if she like just jumped off that film. And these films were like 5 years apart. So,
So no.
She just likes this haircut, apparently.
Really?
That movie was great. I don't know. I don't know if that was, I don't know if it's acceptable within the queer community because she's heterosexual, right? As far as we know.
I believe so.
But
Yeah,
I feel like her relationship with Janet McTeer's character is maybe coded queer, if not explicitly. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Yeah, so it's a problematic film. I think I did like it, but I can see how it can be problematic. So, anyway,
Well,
that's an aside.
But nevertheless, though, Glenn Close is a fantastic actress. Honestly, for having the and Glenn Close, like in this movie, she's in it way more than I would have expected.
Yeah, she's just the biggest name.
Yeah.
She'll say she's having a good time, so,
Oh, this character is so fun for her. Also, absolutely despicable.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, understandably so, but very much a villain in the film. You're still saying no?
I don't know if I would call her a villain, to be honest. I mean, look.
Christ, she is cutting into children's heads.
To save humanity. You gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet.
Look at what humanity has accomplished in this movie.
I mean, no, look. Do I think Melanie's a villain? No. And do I understand why Melanie makes the choice? Because her logic makes absolute fucking sense.
Right.
But, again, if it's like, if you're the doctor, like, I'm the only person here that can save humanity, and clearly, she thinks she's got it in the bag, apparently. All she gotta do is cut out Melanie's brain. I mean, again, I get it. It sucks. I don't really view, I would view Park as more of a villain in this film than any of the other characters we've talked about.
Perhaps what we'll say is you see a protagonist and antagonist, and it's not necessarily a good or bad judgment.
Yeah. I mean, because we can have morality or philosophical conversations about this scenario till the cows come home.
And probably will.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this classroom, Justineau ends up reading the story of Pandora. And, in classic YA fashion, this is very much a coincidental class. It's like, we're going to learn about Pandora, and then the rest of the movie is going to be Melanie exacting the role of Pandora.
Yeah. But she also kind of flips that hope on its head, right?
Ooh, just a bit, yeah. So it's interesting that, we've got this moment where Melanie asks if there's something bad in the classroom, in the story, and we see Miss Justineau whisper no, but she's crying. And again, we don't understand the context here, so it just seems like this is a very empathetic, understanding teacher. And then we say goodnight, and we fade to black. And this is the first 7 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
It's just such a strong way to open.
This is a movie that I would want to show people without having them seen the trailer, because I unfortunately knew the premise of the film before I walked into it, so I didn't have this kind of revelatory moment that we get whenever Park comes in to, show us what these kids are capable of.
Well, it's curious that you say that, because the very next scene is them feeding a bowl of earthworms to Melanie, and she just digs right in.
Which you're like, oh, more child abuse. Yay!
Eat them worms, kid.
See, this for me was a kind of light bulb moment. Oh, there's something not quite right with this child. I didn't think it was abuse. That's so interesting.
Well, yeah, because I guess if there was one child chained up to a chair and they were taking them, that's abuse. I mean, the whole thing is abusive, right? I mean, all the kids together, it's abusive. But yeah, I guess when you see her eating, and then she kind of has that look of bliss when she's, passes out, you realize, that this kid is not a regular human child. Yeah.
What do you folks think of the score in these scenes? So whenever Melanie kind of goes into her fugue post-meal days, we get this very kind of hypnotic score.
I love the score. I think it's gorgeous, and it really does It adds to the tension, and yeah, it does give you these cues. Yeah, I don't know. I just love the score. I actually would like to get like a vinyl copy.
Get that vinyl.
Get that vinyl.
Definitely another thing that would not survive the apocalypse. Vinyl records.
But yeah, it's a gorgeous score.
All right. So we then get our introduction to Dr. Caldwell, Glenn Close, and we see her watching and quizzing Melanie about, the philosophical debate about Schrodinger's cat. And she makes a note of what Melanie says, like how she's reacting. So again, we're thinking, okay, this is a weird social experiment. This is the doctor. Okay. So yeah, maybe abuse, all that good stuff.
Well, because the note she puts in is like exquisite mimicry of other people's behaviors, question mark. Because the whole, Glenn Close's whole thing in this movie is that these are not children to her. These are just things in children's bodies.
Yes. Which, of course, is a completely foreign concept to us. And all that we've seen of this girl is that she looks and acts like a human girl who has a crush on her teacher.
Yeah.
So Dr. Caldwell also asks Melanie for a number, and she gives her 13. And then the next day, there is a child missing from class. So goodbye, Kenny. Melanie accidentally sacrificed you.
That's so harsh. When I, saw that, and I'm like, oh, that is just horrific.
It's cruel.
It's very cruel.
I actually love the visual payoff because once Melanie goes in for her almost sacrifice, we see the jar of number 13's like fungus covered brain.
Yeah.
It does pay off for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back in the classroom the next day. We see the soldiers leering at Miss Justineau's body out in the hall, and she asks the kids to write a story. She's upset at the fact that there is a child missing, and she does not address it with any of the kids, even when they ask. And then Melanie volunteers to read hers, and it is the most cute first crush love story you have ever heard. I love that people don't read this as queer. I'm just like, oh, okay. Tell me you've never had a crush as a young preteen, and also tell me that you're not queer.
Right, because at first glance, it seems very maternal. But it is, she's like obsessed. She loves her. She's like her first love. She gives her the puppy dog eyes. Yeah.
I will confess. So I honestly didn't even, this reading didn't cross my mind. And I think we've discussed this before, Joe, but I think it's because I have this like backseat trigger in my brain to be like, ooh, if I am reading a child as queer, especially with a child's crush on an adult, it's entering into like grooming, pedophile territory, which I know is not the case, but I feel like my brain has been wired by society to shut out possible reads of that because of what the general population thinks of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you don't want to adhere to what society thinks of queer people, where we're constantly looking for this and trying to impose it on people or enact it in real life.
Yeah, a little bit. So I appreciate you bringing it up because I feel like as the co-host of a queer horror podcast, I should have maybe picked up on that a bit more.
Well, and it's also a read where Melanie maybe doesn't know what these feelings are.
100%.
She doesn't know. So it could come off as maternal. It could come off as queer. We just see that she is it's this absolute devotion to this person who is being kind to her. And, she kind of puts all her focus on Miss Justineau because nobody else is giving them the time of day.
Exactly.
But that's interesting, though, because Melanie also, I mean, she's an incredibly nice girl. She doesn't, even when the other soldiers are being verbally abusive to her, it doesn't faze her. And I guess you could argue it's because that's the only kind of human interaction she has known for her entire life. So Justineau is the outsider here. She's
like the interloper in a way.
Yeah. So I that's what I find fascinating is that, she's devoted and obsessed with Justineau, but she's also super nice to these people who are horrible to her.
See, again, I just read that as super, super queer in part because it reminds me of me. Like, I can relate very strongly to this where you kill with kindness so that you are never questioned. No one looks at you funny. You're just like, no, I'm always on my best behavior. I'm always pleasing everyone. Don't look too closely at me.
Yep. Yeah, I could totally relate that to that too, because I always wanted to be the good kid, and it might, it's growing up Black as well. My mom was like, behave yourself, because if something goes wrong, they're coming to you first. I think I've told you guys this before, but
maybe.
yeah. So like you gotta, just be the best kid, the most well-behaved child, so that it doesn't come back to you. So yeah.
I mean, we should also note that Melanie is also the most intellectually advanced of all the kids. She's the smartest. That's why she, is Dr. Caldwell's prized pig of a sorts, right?
Right.
She's kind of the best that these kids have to offer. But one thing I do find interesting, and maybe we can talk about it as we move through the film, but I think the infatuation or the romantic interest in Justineau is at its strongest early on. And then the more that Melanie becomes self-aware, the less interest she actually has in Justineau.
Yeah, I think because she's leaving that old version of herself behind too, right? Because she's grown. When she's out in the world, she sees what it actually is. And she realizes she's the only one that can move within this world without being attacked. And then when she has, I guess I'm jumping ahead, but when she has the showdown with one of the kids, she really grows into her role as being the most powerful person that is out there.
Yeah, it's almost like as she matures and begins to understand the world, she has to change her priorities. And it can't just be this interest in Miss Justineau. It has to be, who am I as a person? How do I fit in this world?
Oh, yeah, she's queen of the world.
Basically. Yeah. I mean, this becomes Melanie's world.
Because it's true. I mean, nobody else can go out there and come back unharmed. She can do whatever the hell she wants out there, basically.
Okay, so Carolyn, you cued us to the fact that they do have this kind of hunger and this reaction, and that's one of the things that we see here. So Miss Justineau ends up touching Melanie because she's already feeling vulnerable, and then Melanie is so kind to her, and she obviously is looking at this as a child. And when Park sees what Justineau has done, he flips the fuck out. And this is where we get the confirmation that the kids are not quite kids, because we have this chain reaction of the kids biting and snapping when he exposes his flesh to them.
I love this interpretation. I mean, because look, here's the thing. When I first saw this, all I could think about was The Last of Us, the video game. And of course, now that's a show, and it's zombies, fungus, blah, 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 blah. I love this interpretation of these zombies. Like, it is very much The Last of Us, but it's also kind of stands on its own. And honestly, the most intriguing quality of it is the sound of their teeth snapping together.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
It's so good.
It's very visceral.
Well, in the special features on the DVD, they said that there was like a choreographer, like I guess a movement coach. And he said he used, when cats look out the window, I have to bring it back to cats, but it's not me. He's the one that did it. So when cats see a bird and they go like that,
right,
like with their little mouth, that's what he wanted them to do.
Which I think is spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just they chitter like cats.
Well, because I think, is it other zombie movies we've discussed, Joe, where it's like, it's like the nurses in Silent Hill, where it's like they brought in trained dancers to do these kind of roles,
Yeah, a lot of creatures will end up using movement or choreography and that kind of stuff just to either give it the otherworldliness or something where it's like, okay, how can we train people to go against their human instincts and adopt things that we see in nature?
Right.
Yeah, I would also like to point out that Miss Justineau touched Melanie's hair, and I'm like, don't touch a black girl's hair.
Didn't we talk about this last year? Yes.
It's the apocalypse. The social standards are gone.
Miss Justineau's just like, I love the texture. Can I touch it? No,
so
bitch.
neat. Yeah.
What if that's why Park was coming in? He was like, don't touch a black girl's hair.
Oh my God. How many times have I told you? I mean, I love that in the very next scene when Parks puts her back in her cell and then leaves her chained to this wheelchair, she does get to gloat at him and says, she likes me, she touched me, she would never touch you.
Oh, snap.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm just like, that's what you say to a romantic rival.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Interesting. Schoolgirl crush, right? Interesting.
So Miss Justineau is the one who rescues her later when she realizes Melanie is still tied up. And this scene is heartbreaking because we saw that Melanie didn't react in the classroom, but you also come to realize half of the class didn't. So it's almost a chain reaction, but you have to be close enough to be affected. And here, when Miss Justineau gets too close, Melanie is able to hold herself back, but she also still does the cat chittering. And Miss Justineau just gets out of the room in time.
Yeah, and she pulls a rookie mistake and leaves her blocker gel tube right there on the floor.
Jesus, girl. All you got to do is pick up after yourself.
Yeah, she's not very good.
I do love that Caldwell tries to pull the same trick by saying, oh, pick a new number. And Melanie has already figured her out. So she just says her own number 4.
Yeah. Well, and the reveal of that, I love the reveal because we kind of like the camera's like in the viewing window of the door and we pull back and see the number 4 on her door.
Yeah. It's great because if you think about the way that their heads are strapped in the wheelchair, she wouldn't even really be able to look up to see that number. So she has just memorized or figured out the sequential order based on other environmental factors.
That's true. That's a very good point. Yeah, because how can she see her number? Because it's up high. But yeah, that was such a great moment.
It's so well shot.
Oh,
yeah.
She knows her number because they have the wheelchair on the floor. They're marked by numbers too.
All right, well, torpedo my
I know. Sorry.
In my mind, I'm like, well, she can look out the window and she can see the numbers on other people's doors, so she's figured out what her number is. But sure, also the wheelchair. Okay, so in the morning, Parks takes Melanie outside, and we see that this has actually all been in an underground bunker, and we're on some kind of military base. We see cars, we see men rushing around, and we also see a gate that is struggling under the weight of a horde of hungries.
I'm sorry. This is in your header, Joe. But do we mind that we're not saying zombies here?
I think it's a choice. I don't really care. It just always feels like one of those, just say what you mean, because it kind of is, and we all know it.
It's just a thing where so many movies do it, whether it's vampires or zombies or whatever the fuck, where we just don't say what it actually is, and I'm kind of like, okay, fine, whatever movie.
Sure. You live in a world where Bram Stoker...
Oh!
Yep, Bram Stoker.
That's brilliant. Oh my God.
You live in a world where Bram Stoker never wrote Dracula, or we never, did anything with zombies. It's like, cool.
Yeah.
So I did want to note one difference from the book and the film is that the movie doesn't include characters called Junkers. And this is other humans who are still living out. This is kind of why I said The Walking Dead, because the movie deliberately doesn't include this so that I think we don't make those kinds of comparisons. But yeah, it's basically just people who have banded together and they do like raiding parties. And the insinuation is that they'll kill people for supplies. And in the book, the reason that the base gets attacked is because Junkers drive a horde of hungries through the gate so that they can get inside and steal all the supplies. Here, there's no Junkers, so it's just, the hungries were able to get here, and then they break in.
They have a really bad security system at this place.
I was just going to say, come on, guys. I mean, you're military, right?
But
I will notice the hundreds of them gathering there? Okay.
Oh, but you know what I loved, Joe? I'm jumping ahead a little bit to the laboratory scene, but where we just see the hungry running towards the glass window behind the character. Ooh, I'm a sucker for that type of shit. I love that.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it, because that's basically where we're at. Melanie is going to be operated on. Miss Justineau tries to come in and stop it. Caldwell fucking maces her in the face.
Oh, it's so good. I also...
man, these women.
She picks up this fire extinguisher, and Glenn Close is like, you can put down your weapon.
Shade, my God. Nice try, Kat.
Yeah, come on, bitch.
Yeah, Caldwell just does not have any time or energy for anybody that isn't getting her closer to this cure. And I do love that single-mindedness of her, as much as I recognize we're also supposed to find her hissable.
Well, also because I guess this is supposed to really clarify that she is really, really, really close to making this vaccine, because I feel like normally the way she interacts with Melanie would be saved for last. But when Melanie picks her number, she's like, yeah, all right, sure, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
And I feel like Caldwell is, she's very focused. She's single-minded on this cure. Also, I feel like she could envision herself, collecting her Nobel Peace Prize, like she's just wanting that kind of glory as well. I don't know.
So she's the white savior.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
She's the world savior, Trace.
She's the Charlton Heston from Omega Man, right?
Oh my God.
Oh God.
Well, it's interesting because these are also differences from the book. So in the book, I'm going to save one of the reveals about the cure until we get closer to the end, because I really think it reshapes your interpretation of what Melanie does. But in the book, we do find out more about everybody's backstory. Obviously, it's a book. It's like 400 pages. But Caldwell is actually a second-tier scientist. So when the outbreak happens, they pick the best of the best to go off into these kind of mobile labs that we'll see later. And she just missed the cut because she wasn't good enough.
Oh, so there's a personal stake in this for her in the book, more so than what we see in the film. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So it is ego, but it's also like, I need to prove to myself, like, all of those fucking idiots didn't get me. They didn't accept me. That's their fucking problem. Now I'm going to save the world.
Oh, see, though, that would make her more villainous to me, because I do truly believe that her motivations in the movie are merely, I am saving humanity. Like, I am humanity's last hope.
Yeah, but it's at all costs. And that, I mean, we can also have a conversation about driven women who aren't, determined by their motherly instincts. Like, I do love that we have this very scientific, at all costs, get the job done woman, contrasted by this heavily maternal, kind of naive and idealistic younger woman. And you're just like, well... Okay. I guess here are two pictures of womanhood.
But you know what? Yeah. It's so funny, because I know you said that Justineau has kind of a backstory because she, maybe ran over a kid or something. I am so fucking happy that she is not she didn't have a kid that died in the outbreak, and then God. Melanie's her surrogate daughter that replaces her. Oh, if we had that in this movie, it would have dropped a whole fucking star.
Yeah. No, it's true. And, I mean, when you think about Caldwell, I do think that she has, she is admirable in that way, where she's doing her job. She's been hired to do this. And the backstory of her being kind of like the second best, she's got something to prove, So yeah, I think that's a really good read. And also, I'm a bit more mature, and, sometimes I see these younger women and I'm like, listen, kid, I get my cigar and go, listen, kid, you gotta stick it out, So, I mean, I can relate to her in that way. So, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, right? The movie understands how we will typically react, and we will side with Melanie because she is a young, harmless child, and we will side with Justineau because she is kind to the young, harmless child, and we don't like Caldwell because she's a mean older lady who wants to cut up kids. And the movie plays with that because it knows that's where normally we would align our interests.
Yeah.
So I do really like that.
Yeah.
But yes, all this to say that Dr. Selkirk eats it in a horrendously gory fashion, and I fucking love it.
Yeah, I think this entire sequence is so fucking... I mean, I'm going to say fun, but it's not fun, but it's fun.
It's exciting.
It's exciting.
Yeah, so Selkirk bites it, and then she comes back mere moments later, which means that Caldwell has to get the fuck out of there, and Melanie is still tied to this table, and this is really the confirmation. Oh, okay, Melanie is kind of like these creatures because Selkirk doesn't pay any attention to her.
I love when Selkirk was licking the floor. That was so disgusting.
I love that. But because she can't find any food, so she's like, the closest thing I have is this blood. I also love that this wound that Caldwell gets on her hand is like her death sentence for the rest of this movie.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Because she is grabbing that broken glass and she's cutting this thing the fuck up. But you can see it. Like, she's grabbed jagged glass and she is just stabbing it. And you can see it cutting up her hands. We get really gory descriptions of what happens to her hand over the course of the book. And the film, I feel like it could have amped up that gore, but we just, I don't know, we get some great reactions from Glenn Close later in the film.
I did not realize this because I was like, well, how long does it take someone to die from sepsis? In worst cases, someone can die within 12 hours.
Yeah, it's very short.
Yeah.
Because it's blood poisoning, basically.
It's blood poisoning.
Yeah. I mean, all she needed to do was get some alcohol in her goddamn wound.
But you can't because we're in the middle of a fucking hungry outbreak right now.
Which, and hey, I know we brought up 28 Days Later earlier, and I do think that the way these action scenes are shot are very reminiscent of that, because does the frame rate increase during these scenes?
If it doesn't, it sure seems like it doesn't.
Okay. But I do think that they, while they are a bit derivative of films like that, I do think they're very well shot. I mean, for this being a guy who it's his second feature film, mostly worked in TV, I'm a little surprised the film looks this good.
Yeah, it has a really good visual style.
That whole sequence, I've seen this movie several times, and I was watching it last night, and I was still on the edge of my seat. Just the way it's shot, it's like boom, boom, boom. The running, the like crazy, like that run that they do, the zombie, I guess, hungry run, where they're kind of leading with their shoulders.
Yeah,
it's just terrifying. I don't know why, but they really nailed that body movement. It's terrifying.
100% agree. And like the moment, so I mean, you know, we're out the back, we're outside now. Melanie's out. Justineau grabs her, and I love that we have this moment where Justineau basically accepts that she is about to die.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But then we have this great, like, again, the camera stays, we don't cut, and we just see this truck come in from out of frame and blow through all these hungries as they're about to get Justineau and Melanie.
This is also really disorienting, I find. It feels like we are properly in the middle of the action. Like sometimes the way that action sequences are framed in movies, it feels like all the action will come towards you or maybe from the sides. Here, I always feel like characters or hungries could be running at me from behind because we are so immersed in the middle of this action sequence. Yeah.
Oh, and there's another fun fact. So apparently, well, M.R.Carey, the writer, he was a hungry.
Oh, really?
He was a hungry, yeah. He was like the guy in the jacket. I think he gets shot when they're kind of pressing at the gate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I had the best fun. And I'm like, oh my God, it's hilarious. I thought it was hilarious. But yeah, I think that point about feeling like something could come up behind you, just the way it was shot, that's so spot on.
Also, another fun fact with your hungries, Glenn Close's sister-in-law, Deb Close, is a hungry in the scene where they have to kind of walk through the dormant ones.
Oh, really?
Her sister-in-law loves zombie movies, so apparently the first thing Glenn Close did when she got this role was call her to be like, I'm in a zombie movie!
Come on down!
Fucking
the
Glenn
fam jam.
Close, the best. Okay, so we do get away in this armored vehicle. So we've got Gallagher, we've got Parks, we've got Justineau, as well as Melanie. And there's Dr. Caldwell sitting in the back as well. Trace, I think the 28 Days Later shot is very much as we're watching this car drive away, as we're kind of craning up, and we just see this horde of zombies going after them, right?
Yeah, 100%. Actually, that's even more like 28 weeks later.
Oh, it is. So we end up doing an inventory stop because we've gotten away. We sort of lost them. It's a bit of a reprieve. And this is where we decide what we're going to do. Okay, so we've got this mask. We've got handcuffs. We're going to head to Beacon, which is the town that is kind of closest, but it's not London, so we don't have to worry about quite as many people. But also we don't have food or enough water, so we're going to stop at this river. And this is also when we get Justineau slapping the shit out of Caldwell when Caldwell proposes putting the subject in the wheel well.
Which, I'm sorry, is that literally like a space in the wheel of this machine?
It's where you would put the spare tire.
Oh my God.
So basically put it in the boot, put her in the trunk. It's just like, that is a child. But of course, to Caldwell, it's not.
Again, imagery and switching the character from white to black. That whole imagery of her in, handcuffs and a face mask. And like that, kind of going back to enslavement. And it's very powerful. And again, this little kid is like, okay, because she knows, like, she tells Miss Justineau to stay away from her.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, just stay a little further back. Even when she's in this kind of powerless moment, she still has a bit of agency.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she knows, she's beginning to know herself. And even though she's willingly being, basically shackled and gagged, she's learning about this world and she's gaining some agency from this situation. The whole thing is so layered. Again, maybe heavy-handed, I don't know. But
I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, I just, thinking about having someone and like wanting to put her in the trunk or the wheel well, and like just the lack of humanity afforded to her.
Mm-hmm.
Again, with enslavement, with, Black children being treated differently. It's just...
It hits different.
It hits different. It's pretty juicy. It's like, you can write for days about this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me get back to this plot. No, I was like going to make a glib comment about, the mask I think is good because I think it's a smart decision to make it clear, but it still is just a little too reminiscent of Hannibal Lecter.
Well, unfortunately, any face mask you have on any person is
right.
To stop them from eating people is going to remind you of Hannibal Lecter.
That is fair. Yeah. So in the book, we get a lot of discussion and kind of historical information about how this all came about and what happened to the cities. And, they run across various bombed houses and parts of the road and these kinds of things. The film is much more judicious about explaining things, and we kind of get in little exposition dumps. So here we get just a tiny bit about how the disease works and also how we can actually get by hungries so long as we go slowly, silently, and don't make eye contact. And of course, our humans will have to wear E-blocker gel.
That sounds like how I walk through life. Slowly, quietly, and I don't make eye contact. Sorry, carry on.
Do you look at the ground when you walk through the streets?
Oh my God. In Toronto?
Well, I got a lot of dogs in my neighborhood, so I gotta look for the poop.
Poop. You could get bitten, you could step in poop. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a place to stay for the night. So we're going to move into a slightly populated area, and we're going well, right? So this is our first kind of, I don't know, it's an action set piece, but it's also so quiet because the whole purpose is that we're just trying to slip by these people without waking the hungries up. I fucking love all of these scenes in this movie. Yeah, so we're doing well until Caldwell realizes that she's seeing uncharacteristic behavior. So there's a woman who's pushing a carriage with a baby's corpse that is being eaten by rats.
Which... There's your R rating. But again, I'm like watching this and not turning out. It brings up that nurse scene in Silent Hill, but also I feel like Zack Snyder directly lifted this scene for Army of the Dead.
Yeah, which we talked about on Patreon. I don't think we referenced this movie, probably because we sometimes forget about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it feels identical.
Yeah, but I'm a sucker for scenes like this. I love the breakout set piece that we had earlier, but like this, what is essentially a stealth scene in a video game. Yes, please give me more of this.
Well, I love that we'll kind of do it a couple of times too, right? So this is the first time just to give us a taste of how it goes. And we very much would have been fine if not for Dr. Caldwell, who then wakes up this one, who then wakes up a bunch of other ones, and we have to rush into this derelict hospital.
Don't you love her reasoning that she's like, I'm just doing my job. That's why I nearly killed all of us.
Because they're all expendable because she is so close to this cure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we get inside and she basically says, I don't know what your fucking problem was. You work for me. And Park says, out here? No, bitch. You all do what I say or else we're all going to get murdered. So we do a search of the premises to make sure that it is clear. this happens in the book, but we get a little bit more exposition. We also start to notice that there are more characters like this mother with the carriage, but we don't really revisit this idea in the film. So like when Justineau finds this chained hungry eating its own arm, in the book, that's actually a hungry who's looking through a photo album of like old pictures. And they still kill it, but it's very much like, oh, this is happening across multiple different hungries. Here it's just like, oh, Justineau can shoot a hungry as well.
Well, because I wanted to ask both of you, this isn't even a book thing, because this scene is cross-cut with Caldwell telling Melanie about like how she came into this world, and where we learned that, you know, all these second generation hungries, they were born this way because the mothers were infected. They ate their way out of their mother's womb and ate all their insides. But why is it cross-cut like this? Is there supposed to be some kind of thematic significance to Justineau killing this hungry with Melanie's revelation? Or is it just we don't want to put these one after the other, so we'll just intercut them?
I don't know. I actually forgot about that part in the book, that there was kind of the hungry looking through the album had kind of some semblance of memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I thought that, I was actually going to say, I thought that the straitjacket, that was really not necessary. It just seemed kind of unnecessary, like they just threw that in, yeah.
I actually don't find this part of the film particularly effective. So Trace, I was exactly the same way as you. I was looking for meaning in the cross-cutting, and I could not find any either. I also feel like it's particularly gruesome, this explanation. It feels malicious on the part of Caldwell. This is another difference that the film does. In the book, we just hear that Parks went out and they started finding kids. So we don't ever try to explain how they came to be, how they have this partial immunity.
Well, so it's almost like Caldwell's trying to make Melanie feel guilty for existing.
Correct. Which I do think works, but I don't think the cross-cutting works. I don't think we need Justineau killing this dude. It felt like they didn't trust that we would care about the quiet moment, so we needed to juice it up by creating fake tension.
I was thinking maybe it was because like we've never seen. Have we seen Justineau kill a hungry in that first? This is the first time we've seen her kill one of these things. And so the only thing I could come up with is that it's showing that if push comes to shove, she would kill Melanie if she had to. But I don't really think that's what comes across. I think that might be what they're trying to do here, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, if that's the case, it's not particularly effective.
I think if they had cross-cut the hungry looking through, I think it would have been much more effective, because then you would have seen like there is something there.
Right, there's humanity there or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while she's searching, Justineau does find new clothes for Melanie, and Gallagher finds canned food and booze. We should also note that Gallagher has a whole other backstory in the book. He's very young, very green. He's eager to please. He's not very sexually experienced. He has a crush on Miss Justineau because he finds her attractive. None of that makes it into the film. People in the Horrorcore's book club were very disappointed with Gallagher as a character because he just comes across as a disposable grunt that we all know is going to be murdered later.
Yeah, he does make it longer than I thought he was going to, though.
This is true. I mean, he's also a redhead in the book, so this is another instance where we're racially flipping. I think the film is just, honestly, it's more reflective of the world that we live in. Like, there's more than one black person.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even the guards that, like, they might have been South Asian, or, you know, at the beginning of the film, they were of color, so. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Actually, all these... Gallagher, Diwali, the one who gets killed. Yeah. Diwali, they're all black, except for Park.
Yeah, the other guy, I think, Carolyn, you were just mentioning it. There's a guy who looks Asian or East Asian that's partnered with Diwali. I think that's the other person that Melanie eats when she's escaping.
Yes, you're right. But then there's another black soldier, though, when they get attacked.
Oh, he gets murdered by the river. Or sorry, shot by Parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So in the book, this is where we would find out about Helen's drunk driving incident and why she feels so enamored with children. It's like a form of penance, and we do not get that in the film. So then we cut to the next morning, and we discover that these hungries have not moved away. In fact, if anything, there's more of them. So this is when Melanie volunteers. She will go out, and she will find them an escape route, but only is she can wear her adorable new outfit. I love this because this is the perfect synthesis of a young child discovering, it feels like back to school time, right? She's like, I want to wear my sneakers and my pink.
Yeah, it's true. It's so, and she plays this so well. Like, she's just so cute and eager and like, I'm going to do it. I'll help you guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come back, because she's actually befriended Gallagher as well. So she's like, I want to come back because I like these two people. So that's why I'm going to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we haven't really talked too much about Nanua. It's super, super disappointing to me that she really hasn't done much other acting apart from this film, because I think she is a huge talent in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. She's really, really, really good. I mean, has she done anything since this?
I think she's done either TV or TV movies, but even that, it's like one or two.
Yeah. Well, I do have another queer connection for you. Fisayo Akinade, who plays Gallagher, is gay in real life.
Oh, hey.
Yay.
There we go.
He was also in Heartstopper. He was one of the teachers.
Oh, right. Okay.
I also think that Sennia, she just seems like a really smart kid.
Mm-hmm.
Just watching the behind the scenes. So my hope is that she probably went back to school and like went into STEM, right? Maybe she went into like what was the Wonder Years actress, and she went back and got a PhD. You know,
yeah, Danielle, somebody.
Something
she does
or other.
Hallmark
Yeah.
movies now.
Yes, I mean, hey, she probably got kids, got to pay the bills, but
Oh, sure.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. My hope is that she went back to school and like got some kind of brilliant degree, and she's doing something fantastic. I don't know.
Well, so just so y'all know, there is a TV show on Starz that no one's probably heard of called The Serpent Queen. And
Oh yes,
so she is a main character on that show as the maid of the main character.
Oh my
Sorry,
God.
one of the
Come
maids of
on.
the main character. But I mean, like, she's fifth
Yeah.
billing, so like she's clearly like plays a part. Like, she's not just like the side maid, you know.
yeah.
Okay.
But it was renewed for a second season, so
Okay.
Okay.
Well.
Hmm.
Okay. So yeah, Melanie goes out. This is the part where she does eat a cat. I love that she's so excited about the new clothes, and then she just covers it in blood.
ugh.
But then she does get the dog, and she lures all the hungries away. And I think one of the best comedic beats is that moment you mentioned earlier, Carolyn, where she kind of shows back up. She's covered in blood, and she just looks at everybody and says, "It's safe because she's not hungry anymore."
Yeah.
And these adults are all terrified of her.
It is really cute though. She's like, I'm not hungry anymore.
Yeah. And it's so crazy because she's got that little picture of the kitten, right? And
Right.
she keeps looking at the kitten when she was in her cell.
Right.
And then she eats a cat. And it's like, I wondered, I'm like, oh, does she actually connect the two? But then there's that scene where she sees
there's a joke coming right
Yeah.
up, right?
Yeah, there's a joke. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
So we decide we're going to move further into the city, and because Melanie has proven herself, we're going to keep using her to chart the way. And at one point, we do see a cat, and Parks says, like, hey, if you're good, maybe I'll like give you a cat. And she goes, I already had one.
But a boom.
And I love it because nobody else is in on this joke except for us as the audience.
That's a brilliant moment too. Yeah.
It's funny, right? We get these moments of jokey levity, and it seems like things are kind of going to be okay. The sun is out. It's in the middle of the day. And then we move into the back part of the film, and this is where Caldwell discovers that the pathogen has moved into its sexual stage. So we start encountering hungries with these trees or vines growing out of them, and they've got these pods. And we immediately start to realize, oh, the film is shifting directions, and it's going to get dark again.
It's not going to get much lighter.
So what she's saying is that there's a bunch of horny fungi hanging
Yes.
around. Like,
Mhm.
okay. I mean, if we're gonna, she's just making it so clinical. Like,
Well, mature sexual stage, right?
yeah,
God.
it's very clinical for some horny fungi.
Just say it. The fungus wants to fuck.
Yeah, baby.
That number, though, so when they come across the really big one that's kind of blocking the city street, and we estimate that there are 10,000 seed pods, and all we need is an environmental trigger, and basically the human race goes bye-bye.
Well, I love how confident she is, though. She's like, let me just whack this on the ground really quick to show y'all how right I am.
It's fine. It's totally safe. I'm not an environmental trigger. Bitch, how do you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was kind of a funny beat, too. She's like, oh, yeah, bang. Hello?
Even the fact, at this point, Caldwell's starting to noticeably look weaker. She's dragging behind a little bit. But there's a part where she takes one of these seeds and just sticks it in the sling that she's using to protect her injured hand. And Melanie sees her do it and is just kind of like, all right.
Well, which I'm also like, again, the confidence of this bitch. Like, you don't think that there's any way that there's some kind of thing in that pod that might get into your wound and then turn you into a hungry? Okay.
Well, yeah, that's what I wondered too. I was like, what are you doing? It's gross.
Well, she's a surgeon and a biologist and whatever studies fungus.
I mean, she has a god complex, so clearly she's not too worried because she thinks she's gonna come out on top.
Well, but she does know she's gonna die.
I think at this point, yeah, she would have to realize it's probably a little bit too late, but this is also when we discover Rosie, the mobile solar-powered armored lab, and you have to think, ooh, maybe I could save myself because we just have to get in here. It's going to have state-of-the-art medical supplies and everything I need to do.
Yeah, let me just unpoison my blood real quick.
Sure,
Sorry,
sure.
I just had a thought. It's like Dr. Caldwell's going, is it sepsis or is it perimenopause?
I am of a certain age.
It's a question a lot of us ask. It's like, is this a cold? Or is this something more serious? Or is it just a hot flash?
Hot flashes, or am I actually dying? They feel the same.
Trust me, you get to a point where you like asking yourself daily this question. So.
Oh boy.
Sorry.
Really selling it, Carolyn.
Okay, carry on.
Okay. So we do manage to get into Rosie. Parks is working on the radio and the engine. It's not quite there. We also don't have any food, which is something that we definitely need. So Gallagher goes out looking for food. Melanie goes out because there is not enough E-blocker in the world against all of these stinky humans. So she has a quick dinner of pigeon. And then this is when she discovers an entire group of feral, non-verbal children.
Man. So, okay, are these meant to be like second generation ones like Melanie, but they just don't know how to speak because they grew up in the streets?
Exactly. They never had a teacher like Miss Justineau, and they haven't been around other people.
I guess I'm just surprised that the army never collected these kids up too. I guess they were like, 30's enough. We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the book they clarified that they got to a certain point, and that's when Caldwell said there's enough. Like, it was difficult to find the kids, but also these kids got good at hiding because they started to recognize what the army was doing.
Yeah, because then they didn't start laying traps of food.
Well, I love that this is an inversion of the kind of thing we'd see with rural horror, right? Where, oh, these kids are dumb. Look at them. They're dirty.
Right.
Where are their parents?
They don't speak.
Don't even have language.
Yeah.
But they clearly know how to communicate. And as you said, Trace, lay some pretty sophisticated traps for dumb soldiers.
Yeah. Oh, this poor man.
It's true, though. They're highly intelligent. It's just they're not communicating in a way that we are familiar with. They're highly intelligent.
They're intelligent, but not civilized?
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay. So one other important note is that in the book, when Melanie discovers these kids, she does not go back and tell anybody about them. She says that she saw a group of junkers because she was afraid that Caldwell would order these kids killed. So she just wanted to create some kind of lie that would help them to move on. Like, oh, the junkers are going to come. We need to get out of here. So she immediately wants to protect the other kids from Caldwell and Parks.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas here in the film, it's kind of like, okay, well, we'll bypass that and we'll wait until it becomes dangerous to Gallagher, who I have feelings for because I like him. He's nice.
Well, is this movie Gallagher or book Gallagher or both?
Sorry. I mean, she has feelings for Gallagher in the book as well, but clearly in the film, the driving incentive for her to rush back to Rosie and say, ooh, you have to come now, is that Gallagher is out there and these kids are going to be able to track him.
Well, she probably should have made a smarter decision and gone to get him instead of tell everyone else about it. She might have saved his life.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wondered. I'm like, Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's okay, because I do love his death scene, and the reveal of his spine is just mwah.
I find that this is an excellent, like, it's a very tense scene, right? So we're in this convenience store. Gallagher is being very foolish. He's not the brightest, bulb.
Honestly, the food I get. He's like, oh my god, like, finally food. But it's when he starts looking at the porn that I'm kind of like, okay, dude, like, come on.
Yeah.
Men get
that
a man.
to me feels like a holdover from the book where all of these guys are always really horny.
Oh.
Like the fungus.
Well, they haven't. Just turn those seeds into some fleshlights and you're good to go.
There we go. Also gross.
I'm just imagining like all these spores going up your urethra.
Oh my god, no. Well, it'd be over quickly.
Yeah.
Just your dick turns into a hungry, but the rest of you is fine.
Okay, see, where's the oh my god, the trauma movie for that? It's a sequel to Killer Condom.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Future episode.
Oh my god, hilarious.
Okay, so yeah, Gallagher is wasted by these kids. It is marvelous. It's very tense. It's very upsetting because they just hack up his legs so that he falls and then he can't get away. And then, they just eat him right down to the core like he's an apple.
I'm going to tell you right now, too, if I was this guy, I would have pulled the pin on that grenade in a fucking heartbeat. Like, the fact that he doesn't and just gets eaten alive.
It's because, remember, it's because he's going back, he's thinking about Melanie.
Yeah.
Because Melanie has some humanity to her.
Right. I think that's why he hesitates, right?
Yeah, he's like, oh, well, these are just kids. But then, Dr. Caldwell's always saying these are not children. And, she's not wrong. I mean, they are.
They're both.
They're both, yeah. So, I don't know. It's a fascinating moment.
Children out there, if I was in this guy's position, I would have killed all of you. Like,
says the person who has been on the record as saying you don't like kids.
Yeah, exactly. I'm truthfully, pain-wise, I would rather take an immediate explosion that kills me immediately than getting eaten alive. I mean, it just sounds so It's horrifying. It's horrifying.
It wouldn't be a fast death, right?
No. And it hurt real bad.
It hurt so much.
Those little, rat-like teeth gnawing at you. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
You just know those fuckers filed those teeth down, too.
Well, they don't brush their teeth, so they're rotten teeth, too.
Okay, so as Gallagher is being horribly consumed, we do hear on the radio back in Rosie that Beacon, aka the destination that they were making their way to, the safe haven, the place that was going to offer them sanctuary, is about to fall. So they don't have a place to go after this. And then that's when Melanie is like, hey, Gallagher's going to die. You need to come with me. And they arrive too late. And they arrive and realize, oh shit, we walked into a trap. That's why Gallagher's body is still here.
I think that's so unique for a zombie film too. I mean, because I think zombie films we call them post-apocalyptic, which I get, but rarely do we have it where like, oh no, the world is basically over. Like, yes, Melanie seals the deal later, but like the world is doomed at this point already.
Yeah. In the book, we've got the Junkers, and they're meant to. It's kind of like a Mad Max kind of thing, where it's like, oh, well, this is what humanity could be like. But look at what it's been reduced to. And then we've got Caldwell and Parks and Justineau who are reflective of like the before times. They just want to try to wind the clock back as though it could ever fucking happen. And that's why Melanie is the future. She's the only one who's looking ahead and saying, these kids, they're kind of like me. Maybe that's the way that the world needs to go.
Well, yeah.
But it's like the world is gone and no one wants to accept it. It's a very human thing, but I do kind of love that it's this black zombie-ish child who is like, let me tell you about the future because it's me.
Yeah. I think that's the most brilliant move. It's, again, like I said, radical, and it's like the fungus is kind of an analogy for like a new order taking over, right? And Melanie has this, it's an influence. It's influencing her to show her that she has power, because am I going too far ahead? But
No.
Because that fungus is basically taken over, the survivors.
Yeah.
Right.
And it creates a new awareness, like a kind of a hardiness, I guess. And that is so, again, such like a juicy realization, I guess, with Melanie. I don't know. It kind of blew my mind the first time I watched it. I was like, what? It's taken over.
Well, and to marry your comment with Trace's, Carolyn, it feels like this is something that zombie films aren't often interested in doing, right? They want to use these creatures as metaphors for something else. They often don't have a lot of intelligence. They're kind of a stand-in for some other social ill. And I love that this is just, this is an evolutionary movie. It's less interested in the zombies regressing to, they don't have brains. They just want to eat and consume, and their capitalism or something like that. It's like, no, the second generation version of this is the future. Right. And they're going to be just fine without us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's like a brilliant way of kind of wrapping it up. It's like, yeah. And, it's so funny that Caldwell is so focused on creating a cure, but she not for a moment registers what is around her. Like, there's a handful of humans probably left, I mean, Beacon's being taken over. Like, it's such a futile attempt at staying in power, because she's also like kind of the old guard of power and and symbols of the patriarchy in the before times in this world. So it just shows you like how they're digging in their nails for as long as they can. It's very sad.
I'm also kind of like, okay, let's say you take Melanie's brain out, you make this vaccine. How are you going to synthesize this?
Sure.
And like give it to all the people in the world?
Right. How is that going to work?
Like, she's so focused on the immediate, okay, I just need to make a cure. She hasn't even stopped to consider, how will you distribute it? How will you mass produce it? Even, are there planes in this world that you would even be able to get to, like, America or, another continent or something like that?
Yeah. I'll be obvious and I'll bring it back to conservatism. Like, now, like, you see people living as the people they want to be now. They're trans, non-binary. There are people of color that are coming into power. And, these kind of old, white, like, stodgy, male, patriarchal idiots are just, they're doing everything in their power to try and stop it. But as much as they try, it's not going to be stopped. And it's kind of, I don't know if it's kind of detrimental to see a new order coming in as a fungus. I don't know. I mean, come on, let's be nice about it. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. It really strikes me as like the old world is trashed. Make room for the new.
It's the representation we didn't know that we needed, but here it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the moments that Melanie really matures and kind of grows into who she is when she has to step up to protect Justineau and Park. So all of a sudden she has to be the dominant leader. So I think it's actually really difficult to watch her beat this other kid to death after handcuffing him, but it is that moment of maturation.
Yeah, I mean, it also shows, again, how smart she is, because she learns how to communicate with them and what they view as power. And it's very primal, obviously, but like, I did not find it difficult to watch her destroy this child, though.
Really?
No.
I'm just like, this is feeling a little Lord of the Flies right now.
Yes. Yeah, it was. And also, I felt like she was kind of channeling what she was seeing when she was in the facility.
Yes.
For sure.
The violence from the soldiers. Like, she's like, I'm in control. Like, it's just all these things coming together in her head and like just taking her power back.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, all these people are like, they're like, don't turn against us. But it's like, have y'all seen the way that y'all have like exhibited behavior to her? It's a miracle she's as nice as she is.
Yeah.
And that's why I opened the episode by saying, we're probably going to talk about nature versus nurture, because in some ways you could say that the fungus is the natural part of Melanie, right? Like, she can't change that about her in whichever version you want to believe, the book or the film. Like, this is just who she is. And the nurture is the part where, this saves Park and Justineau, but look at what extent she has to resort to. She's mimicking this behavior exceptionally well, but it's horrendous behavior. It's murderous. It's filled with slurs and comments and stuff. And you're just like, ugh, if that's the best that humanity had to teach her, it's not great.
Well, but actually, and not to like say forget abortions again, but what I love...
But you just did.
But because here's the thing. I don't even know if Melanie... I know she
doesn't even know what she's saying. She knows it has power.
Well, because she incorporates it into her story.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love, because it's not like she knows it's not good, but like she doesn't really read it as, because I feel like the word slur has such a harsher connotation to it than just like, oh, that's a bad word,
Yeah, it's a crude, rude insult.
Yeah, no, but like it's almost like, again, she kind of makes it innocent by incorporating her story, because she's like, yeah, whatever, like this is the insult that I hear thrown around the schoolyard my entire life. It's the only one that I hear, so let me use that. It's cute.
It's cute coming from her, not so much from Parks.
She actually is exhibiting a natural childlike behavior, because kids hear their parents swearing and then they want to start using the word. They don't know exactly what it means, but they know.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and this is basically a version of a schoolyard fight writ large, right? With actual life or death stakes. But this is very much, I want to play in the swings and you're not letting me. Okay, well, I'm going to beat your head in with a bat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we do get out of this situation. We make it back to Rosie, but oh, wow, we walked into a third trap in this movie. Caldwell drugs everybody, so everyone is knocked out. I will say, this moment of physical histrionics from close when she is dragging Melanie's body and just screaming at the pain in her hands. Fucking love it.
Oh, yeah. It's rough. Like, it is, you feel this.
You feel it. And I love that Melanie lets her do this because it hurts Caldwell. She could have identified that this is a ruse of her own, and yet she lets Caldwell drag her. And then she gets up and says, oh, yeah, right. I don't need to breathe as much as human beings. This is a bit of a failure in the adaptation. In the book, we learn that when she's counting, that's actually her counting until she has to breathe again. And you don't get that in the movie.
Oh, because I wrote in my notes, why is she counting? I thought she was just bored.
Yeah, so no, she can hold her breath for a very, very long time, so the gas has not affected her. And then she revisits her initial interaction with Caldwell and basically says, hey, am I doing a good job of mimicking human behavior? Do you think I'm human? And this is when Caldwell agrees, and Melanie says, well, why should I die so that you can live then?
Okay, so wait, question. Do y'all think if Caldwell said, no, I don't think you're human, do you think Melanie would have changed her answer?
I don't.
No, because I think that she already had her heart set on just taking over. And she's realized now, she's fought the little zombie kids. She knows her power. And I don't think much could have changed her trajectory, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is a test for Dr. Caldwell to see, like, have you finally accepted me? Because I've already had my moment of self-actualization. I know who I am. I'm checking to see how you feel. And Caldwell gives her a genuine response. So kudos to her, but I don't think anything would have saved her.
Yeah.
What do you think, Trace?
Oh, no, I agree with you. I was trying to see if y'all would come up with a different answer. No, but I love this entire interaction. I think it's fucking fantastic. Again, it's that moment. I love that there's also not really a music cue. Because I feel like, again, a lesser movie, when she's like, well, why should I do this to save you, would be met with a boom.
Yeah, either ominous score or some kind of swell. Yeah.
No, but the movie trusts us to just let us take the moment in and feel it.
Well, and these two performers are so good together that the movie feels very trusting to say, yeah, we don't need that musical cue because these actors are giving you everything you need to know.
Glenn Close was probably in the editing room like, don't fucking put music on this.
And also get my sister into that scene as an extra. So I have one final book to film comparison. I teased it earlier. We have arrived at the moment. This, apart from the racial swap of Justineau and Melanie, I would say is the biggest one for me because it dramatically changes the way you read how Melanie reacts.
Okay.
So in the film, it is always clear that Caldwell is on the verge of finding this cure. As you said, Trace, she just needs Melanie. If she can get her brain, she's got Rosie now, so she has all the equipment she needs. The cure is on the table, and Melanie is saying, okay, I don't fucking care. I'm going to do it my way.
Okay.
In the book, at this point, Caldwell admits she does not know if she can make a cure. In fact, she doesn't think she can.
But she still wants to sacrifice... Is she still wanting to sacrifice Melanie in the book to see if she can?
Yes. But she basically says at this point, like when she's confronted by Melanie, who is more or less telling her, I'm not going to let you do what you want to. This is where Caldwell kind of says, oh, well, I don't know if I could have, but I'd still like to try.
This is... Okay, this... do y'all know if there's a reason why this was changed for the movie?
So I don't. I mean, the results are the same. So Melanie still goes out and sets this giant tree on fire, and she causes an environmental trigger that basically kills the human race. But I feel like in the movie, you could be forgiven for then saying, oh, well, Melanie's kind of a villain because she actively says, ooh, I could save the human race and I'm choosing not to.
I mean, she's self-preservation. She's being selfish, but again, that doesn't make her a villain for me. And I mean, I will not harp on The Last of Us again, but the way the book sounds, like with the whole, the vaccine may or may not work, killing this girl may or may not bring a cure to humanity, that is what The Last of Us does. And so right. I don't know if that was a conscious decision whenever this guy was writing the screenplay.
Well, the book comes out in 2013, so it's like right around the same time.
Oh, it's the same fucking year. Oh, no, it's 2014. It comes out the year after Last of Us. But
okay.
Nevertheless, though, I don't think there was any. I don't think there was any actual like thought about it. I'm sure this guy didn't have time to play The Last of Us while he was writing both a book and a screenplay at the same time. But I actually do like the movie version of it more.
Mm-hmm. So, Carolyn, you've mentioned that you find this kind of empowering. Does that change your thoughts on Melanie's decision?
I don't think so. Actually, I think that them removing that aspect from like that part in the book, it actually just makes it a bit cleaner, you know? And it makes it definitely more clear cut that Melanie is in it for herself now because she's gradually found the power that she has in this world, and she, you know, she's a highly intelligent kid, and so she's put two and two together and seen, well, you know, there's a handful of humans left, and how many countless numbers of like evolved children that can function in this world without having to be minded, you know? So I think that she's kind of come up with all of this as she's going along. She seems sweet and innocent. Yeah. And I can see the whole villain aspect. But also, you know, I think roles for women and girls, they always have to sacrifice, you know?
Right.
They always have to give themselves up, and they have to do things for the greater good. And pleasing people, like that's what women are supposed to do. And Melanie does not do that. She's doing what is the best for her. I wish I could take a page. Look, I really do. I identified with Melanie because I actually looked a lot like her at that age.
Right.
I looked a lot like Sennia at that age because, long story, I was a sickly kid. I had alopecia. All my hair fell out. When my hair was growing back, I looked a lot like Melanie. It's really uncanny. And I just really relate to her. And I wish I had a tiny ounce of that confidence, that kind of complete, pure confidence. She's not malicious. She's just confident. And she's like, okay, well, let's add this up logically. I am this thing. you are trying to do this to me to save a small portion of people. Doesn't work out for me. I'm going to do what I need to do, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just think that she really is a figure of empowerment, especially for women who have to kind of put their wants and needs aside for the greater good. And she's not doing that. She's like, hell no. Set this shit on fire and see what happens.
I mean, literally, it's a burn the world down moment. Trace, you asked earlier, is this a good for her thing? And I'm like, I think it's a good for her. It's not good for humanity. But to me, I read Melanie as a queer, racialized figure. And there's something super fucking empowering about a queer girl saying, fuck you, white elders. This world is mine now. You're dust.
I mean, I agree with both of you. Honestly, the only thing that turns me away from Melanie is this final scene. It's the treatment of Justineau, but also Melanie's final line where she's like, we have lots of time, because the delivery that Sennia gives is almost malicious, and it's
a little snarky.
Yeah,
I kind of like it though.
I like it. I do. I just feel so bad for this Justin. I mean, truthfully, if I was Justineau, I would have killed myself. I would have walked out into the goddamn spores and just let it take me.
It is a difference from the book too. So we haven't talked about it. Caldwell dies. Parks dies. That's fine. Blah blah blah. It's good stuff. But yeah, in the book, Justineau is kind of happy. She has a suit that allows her to go out so that she won't get infected, so she's not trapped in the mobile lab permanently. But she does understand and even accept her role as a teacher, mentor, mother figure to these kids, and she's cool with it.
Oh, man.
And in the film, she wakes up and the first thing that you see on Gemma Arterton's face is that tear rolling down like, oh my God, it's another day of being the only human being alive teaching these feral kids. But I do love, again, if we're flipping this and reading this as a queer story, that Melanie has found her found family and they're starting to become verbal. She's going to be able to communicate with them differently, but she is the leader of this tribe and she has found her people.
She's also a predatory lesbian, kidnapping the person she's in love with and holding them hostage for all eternity.
She's just waiting until she can get a little bit older and then she's going to get all up in that Justineau.
Well, she can't do that because if they fuck, she's going to get infected.
You don't know. She's sucking Jen.
It's going to be like pushing daisies, where they just have to like not touch each other the whole time.
Exactly. I mean, we see that here, where it's like hands on the glass, you know, hey babe, I feel you.
But that being as bad as I feel for Justineau, and I do feel very bad for her. I love this final scene. It's so it really sticks with you after you leave.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we haven't talked about how beautiful it is when she sets the tower on fire and all the spores start popping and the sky is just filled. It looks somewhere between an environmental disaster movie and some kind of glorious queer rage moment. Like, it's like The Witch.
Yeah, like I feel like it's like a Black Power fist, you know, as well. Like this like black rage, queer rage, like marginalized rage coming out and just kind of exploding all throughout the world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like all these kids have been marginalized their entire lives. They've all been treated like not even second-class citizens, like fifth-class citizens. Ugh.
Like not citizens at all.
Yeah, like not human, you might say.
Yeah. Also, there's something about, I mean, we've talked about how we like fatalistic endings, nihilistic endings. We're all in on a good for her ending. I feel like this is a decidedly not American, not Hollywood studio film, because I just can't imagine someone signing off on this and saying, yeah, I'm fine with this. This is not too dark. This is not too grim.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, we saw each other at Knock at the Cabin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was not pleased with the ending, so...
Oh, yeah, no, that movie.
Yeah. And it's like, come on. Just leave the ending as is. So, yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's a film that doesn't trust its source material or its audience, I would argue. We have a whole Patreon episode on it if people want to go back and listen to it. But yeah, I think that there's some really good parts in the book. I think if you like the characters, you get a lot more of the richness of the backstories and that kind of stuff. But the film, to me, is making some very smart adaptation choices, and it plays better for me than the book reads.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah.
Interesting. So, so should I rush out and read this book?
It's entertaining. I find the pacing of the book goes in ebbs and flows. Like, it feels long, and it is long.
Last question for me, but like, is it because we're switching from POV to POV? Are there certain characters you don't like their chapters?
That's interesting. Carolyn, I don't know how much you remember of it. I found the men not particularly interesting. That could just be the queer,
the gay in you,
though. I'm just like, oh, horny straight men. Nah, I'm fine.
I just think about Game of Thrones whenever it's books or like that, where I'm like, oh yeah, I have to go through. I have like 4 characters. I'm like, I fucking hate your chapters.
Thankfully, the chapters are not that long, but also it reads like a YA book, so it's pretty fast.
Yeah, and I can't really remember if I disliked any particular characters. Train. I don't know. I don't think so. It's been so long, I can't really remember.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nevertheless. Well, that is The Girl with All the Gifts, but do y'all have any final thoughts on this? I mean, we've talked a lot, but I mean, is there anything else you'll need to get out?
Your comparison to, or like kind of mentioning 28 Days Later, again, there's like a black heroine that survives at the end, and they have power and agency in these worlds. So I think that's a really important aspect of these films, is that, again, they're both not North American, so they're not really kind of making nice, so to speak, with the ending, and I really appreciate that, as you've pointed out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're crediting the UK, this is a co-production, but it feels like there's a slightly different relationship to race in the UK compared to something like Canada or the US more specifically.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't want to open up a whole new bowl of worms for Melanie to eat here, but it does feel like there's a different kind of tension, but also we're more comfortable having this kind of nihilistic ending and having a kind of racial component to it, because that is maybe more reflective of the culture.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know how this was received in Europe, to be honest. Like, if we have European listeners, let us know if this kind of went down well.
Oh, and there was one more thought it just popped into my head. Melanie being experimented on, it goes back again to Black people being experimented on, the Tuskegee experiments. That also kind of comes into play too. So again, every time I watch this film, like, it's not that I get something new. It just reminds me of the power of changing up your cast, you know?
Yeah.
And actually putting a person of color, a Black person, or, a woman, or have a queer narrative, and how much richer a story can become.
Well, and that's the thing, right? I mean, like, not to go back to the whole, just the general idea of swapping, but like, what if we had a Black actress playing Justineau and a white actress playing Melanie in this movie? How much would it change your it would clearly change your perception of a lot of the things a lot.
Because the book actually got in a lot of trouble. Like, it wasn't just the ending, the whole thing, that people were like, ooh, there's some really uncomfortable racial issues in this book.
Yeah.
And you're right. Instead, we get to have really fun, fascinating conversations about the film.
Yeah,
just
there you go.
by virtue of that simple change.
Well, and you know what's funny, though? I bet you if this was made, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, it would have stayed the same.
Probably, yeah.
True. And this is why, if there's any filmmakers listening to Horror Queers, y'all need to change it up.
I'd say just don't be afraid, particularly like if you are looking at adapting something. It's like there's a reason to change things because it can open up new storytelling avenues.
Exactly. And scene.
Well, okay, yeah. So that is The Girl with All the Gifts, everyone. And if you have not seen it, please go watch it. It is a really fucking good movie. Well, before we announce what we're covering next week, Carolyn, first, thank you so much for coming back on here again to discuss this. But let everyone know, where can they find you on social media?
I'm on Twitter sometimes, just retweeting cat memes. At VFD Pixie. I'm on Instagram at Simo25. I don't, I'm just doing the film festival stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Follow Blood in the Snow and Fantasia Film Festival social media. See what's out there.
There you go. Well, if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. If you want to chat with other listeners, please join our Facebook HorrorQueers group. And if you love us, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want even more content, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. If you subscribe today, you'll get 331 and a half hours of Patreon content, including this month's new episodes on Hannibal Season 1, Episode 9, Blink Twice, Beetlejuice, the American remake of Speak No Evil, and finally, our brand new audio commentary on Becken Woods' Haunt for its 5th anniversary.
Ooh, okay.
I know, but Joe... What are we talking about next week?
Oh my gosh. Well, Trace, it's a bit of a fucking milestone because we are talking about our 300th main feed episode. And we thought, why not go back to the beginning and redo an episode that could use a little extending out? So, in honor of its 15th anniversary, we're going to revisit Jennifer's Body.
Oh boy, yeah, everyone. We did this, what, Joe, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's episode 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh boy, yeah, we definitely owe this one another look. So, I am very excited to revisit this with you because I don't think I've watched it since we covered it.
Okay, yeah, it's been a while, so I'm excited. Let's get a hell yeah to revisit.
Absolutely, hell yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, until next week, we can cross out the girl with all the gifts.
Indeed. And cross out horror queers.
My name's Ava, and the moment the first meteors hit, our world changed. The meteors brought creatures, aliens that are hellbent on destroying our world. My only goal now is to make it from New York to California so I can be with my fiancé Scott. He's waiting for me.
Come on, Ava. You're gone.
I went to New York with Mark and Jay, my co-workers and close friends. Now we have to work together to survive our cross-country trek. Travel isn't easy, but I will make it home. I will.
End of All Hope is a sci-fi apocalyptic series about 3 friends trying to get across the country during an alien invasion. 5 full seasons are out right now. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or find us online at bloody.fm.